Poetic Justice here. This should be a short video, but I'm just going to go over something that I didn't go over in the Stone Age video, or getting out of the Stone Ages, and that is the progression to the end game, and the machines that are required. I guess I'm just going over it really quick because I just wanted to point a few things out, of how simple this game actually ends up being if you just have some direction of where you're going. And I think I said in that previous video that as long as you focus on logistic systems in any game or anything like that that's like this, normally you end up getting closer to the end. But in this game, that's the logistic systems only get so good because the content in the game isn't very big. So here's what you'll have to beat the whole game, at least. You need your workbench, the carpentry table, the butchery table, tailoring table, masonry, the kiln, the bloomery, the anvil, the sawmill, the blast furnace, the machine shop, the electric assembly, and the factory. But you also need a research lab, which I didn't quite put in the chest. So anyway, need a butchery is of course to do the research you need so that you can end up making bricks and lumber at the sawmill. And once you get to a part in the game where because the sawmill and chopping wood and being a lumberjack is a very limited time thing, eventually that's gonna wear out its usefulness to the community and the server, and what's going to hold ultimate supremacy is going to be if you're a miner and you mine metals, etc. You might have noticed that many miners on the server is rich and they have big houses and all this other stuff, and that's because it just so happens that all those nice things requires metal in that in-game stuff. So another thing I would like to point out is, out of all these things, the thing with the highest requirement for what facility needs to be built in is this. Two tier 2 materials inside the room that it's contained in and fuel, which is very low because they're tier 2. But if you look at the factory, then what you'll see is that the factory requires, you can put it outside. It just has to be, I guess, on a power grid or something. And the electronic assembly requires 18 tier 2 materials, which once again is pretty much nothing compared to having a blast furnace and being able to make steel. So you can see who comes out on top here, and that is this individual is going to be able to make the best equipment in the game. In-game, they're going to be able to repair the best equipment in the game, and essentially they're going to be the most useful. Now the messed up thing is that the communities in each server, normally that I go to, have about 10 to 8 people, and you don't even need that high of a number. You can have 6 people and you can beat the whole game. The only thing is it might take a little longer, but it takes a very long time even if your community is big. And the reason why it takes a long time is because people get selfish, or people get lazy, and people don't know how to set up auto shops. Once you set up the game's little, what you should say is everything becomes smooth. Everybody knows where they need to go, put stuff, etc. And the game really falls off whenever it comes to trading materials with other people who need them. And the reason why is because if you're a lumberjack and you give your wood, everybody's going to, maybe not have anything to offer you back or something, or actually in reality they do. but you feel like you're losing out, I guess. And the reason why is because if you chose to be a lumberjack, you're probably going to be completely useless in the end game. And so you're probably trying to find an alternative route to go while you're worth something. And so materials of a higher tier go all the way up to tier 4. They're only good for a house. And I think I'll go over houses in another video. But there's a few things that are in the game that I just think I should mention, and that is you might see a lot of people always go Baker. And I think it's very strange because you can get a lot of bonus points for certain items that bakers can offer you, but you can also get a lot more bonus points in a regular server from the building a house and putting proper rooms in it. And so a lot of people aren't going to build a house and build proper rooms, I guess, because they have this thing to them where they're just lazy, and the lumberjack normally doesn't chop trees and they don't regrow trees, and there's no reason why everybody should be using trees anyway to build houses. It should be very quickly, people use stone because the stone is abundant in the game. Another thing is, if you try to go to the end game, and you're gonna use a lot of gold if you make a mint. That gold is very useful for making the lasers to shoot the meteors. So if you plan on if you're a miner and you know the meteor is gonna hit, you're safe because your house is probably under the ground. But let's go over some of the skill bonuses of the baker. And we'll do this with a kitchen and a stove. So the crimson salad's actually the thing that a lot of people like out of this, and then the other thing that people make a big deal about is the Bear Supreme. And the Bear Supreme's pretty interesting because it requires and the meat stock, so you still have to kill animals to get it. But it gives you, like, let me go ahead and show you. So if you take this 0 off the end of my nutrition, where it says 480, you'll get, and then you cut that in half, you'll get about the actual rate that I should be at, which is, I should be at plus 24 skill points. But if I give myself a Bear Supreme, and then I eat that Bear Supreme, suddenly, if you look at how many skill points I got now that I'm gonna get per day, it went all the way up to 188, 1,888. Then we're gonna go ahead and go a step further and get myself a crimson salad, and we're gonna eat that, and it goes all the way up to 2,210. Now, if you go ahead and take a moment to think about this, 180, which in reality would translate to 24 skill points on a real server. And I pretty much multiplied how many skill points I was getting by 5. So this diet here gives you 5 times as many skill points as you'd normally get. Whereas building a house adds about, at most, 50 extra skill points per day. So that's, in total, you can multiply how many skill points you gain by 7 times if you watch what you eat in the game, and if you, but a lot of people that are cooks are going to be selfish, and they're not going to help everybody except their friends. I don't know what the deal is with that whole thing. That defeats the whole purpose of the game partially. And if you do that in real life, I mean, you can ask yourself why you were raised in a poor house or family or whatever, and that kind of gives you an idea. And so, yeah, the total skill points you're going to get in this game maximum is 7 times what you started with. So that's about 150 skill points um, on the lowest rate regular rate skill point server it's going to be. So 150 is actually a whole lot, and you could probably single-handedly progress really far in the game without anybody else if you could do that, and become completely self-sufficient to some degree that everybody else is not. So if you plan on going to a server where you know everybody's going to be really, really terrible, that's what you could do. And things I was going to show. So I don't believe the pump jack's actually necessary in the oil refinery, but it does help because it gives you oil, what you need for fuel, for the wagon or for the excavator or whatever you're going to build. But you don't even need those really in the game, but they just make your life easier. And then you got the bakery oven, and the bakery oven's just the same as these two things over here. They're just very high tier. They require a lot of points to invest in, and properly so because of what they do. If everybody isn't getting along on the server, thing you would want to know, and this might also be something like that will help you out so that you don't have to worry about depending on the lumberjack or whatever. But if people aren't actually getting along on a server anyway, a lot of people are probably going to end up getting banned just because the admin didn't like them or because they didn't do what the admin told them to by force. And that's just kind of how server hosts are these days, even though that defeats the whole purpose of the game, which is to be like an anthill simulator for people. And anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.